Hi everyone, I'm Benjamin Northey, the Principal Guest Conductor of the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, and I am very delighted to be joined by the MSO's 2026 Composer in Residence, Joseph Chindamo. Hello Joseph, how are you?
Hello Maestro.
And also by mezzo-soprano Jessica Aszodi. I will be conducting the MSO Jessica and the MSO chorus in the world premiere of Joseph Chindamo's Are There Any Questions, in a concert coming up very soon. I think it's the first of your composer in residence tenure,
yes,
isn't it?
It is.
So that's particularly exciting. We have played a lot of Joseph's music before, including a spectacular trombone concerto. But the title, Are There Any Questions? Well, as it turns out, Joseph, there are questions. Where does that title come from?
Well, it's the last line from Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale. The work itself is filtered through the dystopian worlds of that novel and George Orwell's 1984. So that's where the title comes from.
So how does the inspiration for such a deep and complex subject come to you when you had the possibility to write, I'm presuming, pretty much anything?
Well, you know, as always, these projects have a genesis in very pragmatic, in pragmatic ways. You know, a wonderful man called Michael Aquilino approached me about 5 years ago, and he said, "You know, I want to commission you to write a symphony." And I said, "Well, that's fantastic, thank you, but we need an orchestra." So I took the idea to my wonderful friends at the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, and one thing led to another, and they came on board as co-commissioners, and the project grew from, you know, a flimsy idea, or a very general idea, I shouldn't say flimsy, about what we were all going through in the COVID period, to the dystopian worlds of George Orwell's 1984 at first, and then including The Handmaid's Tale. So that's how that grew, and the symphony turned into a requiem, the requiem turned into a quasi-requiem, and then we added choir, because of course requiems have choirs, and that's how we've ended up here.
So it seems like it's gotten bigger since the
start.
It's got
bigger. It's got big. Well, see, the whole idea about the COVID period, it certainly highlighted a lot of the things that were mentioned in the book. You know, I mean, we had families turning on each other, regardless of politics or which side, or where you lie on the spectrum. It damaged everybody. You know, families stopped talking to each other. 30-year friendships dissolved overnight, and all of a sudden you saw this. I think we're kind of living through a kind of dystopia. So I went back and reread 1984 and Handmaid's Tale, and I thought, I'll broaden this, you know, and make it about that. And then I started to think about the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, how empires grow, they become great, and then they self-destruct. So I wanted to create a piece about opposites. You know, if you look at the titles, you know, Voices in the Ash, or Canticle of the Bound, Divine Dystopia. They're all about, you know, the yin and yang, or the Jungian shadow rearing its head. You know, there's this dual world of the corporeal conscious world and its photographic negative, always playing with each other.
It's got a very liturgical feeling to it, I suppose, because of the fact that it does have choir. You've used Latin text.
Yes.
You also have included the organ, so that was a late inclusion as well. So would you describe it as a liturgical style?
Oh, absolutely. You know, you almost hear my Catholic upbringing coming through it, and not in the sense of religion, but in the sense of culture, because as we were saying before, my background is Italian, and as I get older, I'm embracing that identity a lot more. And I'm even signing my scores as Giuseppe and Joe in brackets at the moment. And in some ways, there's something of the Roman Empire in this piece, and the use of Gregorian chant gives it a very strong ecclesiastical feel. So you're very right. And also the fact that the text for the choir is entirely in Latin and very slogan-like in order to align itself with 1984's slogan-filled book. So, you know, you've got the choir chanting, "For brother we fight," or "War is peace," and things of that nature. But then there's a lot of angelic moments and alleluias and something that you might expect to hear in a great cathedral.
Initially, it didn't have a solo voice in it. So that was another thing that came to you. What's the significance? We're so lucky to have Jessica being able to join us for this, one of the most spectacular voices you will ever hear. What's the significance of that part, that solo vocal part?
Well,
and why did you feel the need to include it?
Well, firstly, you know, I've been a fan of Jessica's for about 15 years, since the first time I heard her perform. I was actually performing in Ian Grandage's...
The Riders.
The Riders.
Just down the street at the Malt House here.
And I was in the pit, and I heard this amazing voice. I thought, who is this? And the same thing, we talked about working together back then, and then fast forward about 15 years, and I was at Melbourne Symphony Orchestra listening to you conduct the Bernstein.
Yeah, Kaddish.
Yes.
Second Symphony, yeah.
And out, I wasn't wearing my glasses, and out walks this, soprano. Do you like to be called a soprano or mezzo-soprano? I noticed.
You know, I'll answer to both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, it was the blindfold test. You know, I didn't know who is this. So you've done that twice to me. So firstly, it was about the who more than the what.
I see, yeah.
But you really appear at the heart of the piece in the third movement, which is essentially a love song sung to a big brother figure, if not big brother, him, her, it, they, themselves. And we don't know, we're not quite sure whether through indoctrination you are genuine about that love. Is it a love born of fear? Are you being sarcastic about it? Are you being sardonic about it? Are you, in fearing for your life? Are you pretending? Or do you genuinely love this character? And we don't quite know. So all those mysteries have to come out in the interpretation, and who better than you to bring out such complicated feelings? Because it's not a straightforward, beautiful aria. It has all these hidden meanings, and you're the perfect person to do that. In the fifth movement, Choir of Glass, you appear again almost working at odds with the Gregorian chant, singing this rather angular, very operatic, highly strung, emotional line against this backdrop of monks. So, in other words, you're almost a metaphor for the individual in society.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, you are no stranger to premieres of new works. I know this is an area that you specialise in. You seem to be able to sing anything, which I think is a huge disadvantage, because then people just ask you to sing anything. Yeah. How have you found preparing for this particular work, and what are the unique challenges around this one?
Well, I think the most unique part about working on this piece has been that every work session before being delivered the score started with a big bowl of pasta. It was quite a lovely luxury to have, because Joe and I live quite close to each other, and we would just sit down at the dining table, and Joe would make me something really delicious, and then we would talk and connect and just get into each other's space, and then we would go into the music room and look at the score, and Joe would play me what recordings he had, and we would talk very honestly about the reactions that we were having as we went. And this is a really beautiful way to work, to just be fully present and have these sort of heartfelt reactions in real time as the piece is being built. This doesn't often happen. Sometimes you just get a score and you go on, but this has been a really lovely, very personal building of the score in this way. And I can hear myself in it, and I can hear that you've really written this for me, and that's very touching. So it's a lot of fun to sing. I got it and I went, oh, this makes total sense. Great. No comments.
Well, that's great. So you didn't have to so I suppose the collaboration was done in those sessions in the music room, but you didn't actually have to say, I would change that, or I wouldn't do this. There was quite a lot of that. Or
Jessica's too modest to bring this up, but I'll if I may be permitted to say something about that. I had written a little cadenza.
Oh, yes.
In the middle of this aria, and it was it's like a traditional cadenza where
it was very virtuosic.
Very virtuosic. I was going to say, a lot of tenors like to do, and a lot of sopranos. They'll hold that top note, and it becomes about how long I can hold it rather than how it serves the music. And you put a stop to that, which you directed me to a score to have a listen to. I think it was Cuba de Lina.
Oh yeah.
And you suggested that I write something more angular and I thank you for that, because I went away and did that, and it made the aria infinitely better.
Well, what we're doing here today, apart from talking, is that we're about to go into what's known as a reading call. So we're 6 weeks out from the performances. We have a unique opportunity to get the piece into a room without the choir, to be fair, but with Jessica, with the MSO musicians, and read it through for the very first time.
Yes, it'll be exciting.
I know, it is very exciting. It's a great opportunity for you to hear it, because your process, and most composers would mock up a digital version of their piece, which are very, very helpful in terms of being able to sort of hear an approximation.
It's changed composition, I think, a little bit.
Yes,
the way
that's
we
true.
compose today.
Yeah, well, you're sort of hearing evidence and possibilities in a concrete form, and it will be very different again today. What are the things that you're most curious about discovering about the work today?
Oh, quite selfishly, I'm looking for a hedonistic hit of hearing 60 strings at least, and the rest of the orchestra play through various sections. But I'm very keen. I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here to hear the aria. I think that's going to be the highlight. I'm very keen to hear how some of the brass fanfares that I've written, that they're almost reminiscent of the Roman Empire. I keep bringing that back, and how that will work with the string parts are very quite complex, difficult to play. So I'm very keen to hear how that works, and also the balance of the orchestration.
Yeah.
That's a really important thing, to look out for, and what must I change, if anything. We'll be chatting about and also we'll be chatting about interpretive things that
tempo choices
that we like to bring out or not bring out.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you about the chorus and the style of writing, and it's hard to talk about music without people hearing it.
Yes.
What I would say for those wondering, is this a work that will, I suppose, be somewhat accessible to them in terms of its style? I would say absolutely it will be, because the way that you've used the choir is in a reasonably traditional way.
Yes.
Would you say that?
Yes.
And harmonically, it's rooted in the history of choral music somehow. Was that a deliberate decision?
I think so, and because some of the weirdness comes from other places.
Yeah.
The juxtaposition of things in of itself, well, I can't really say that about the orchestra, because there are very avant-garde sections. But then again, in much the same way that the titles are a play of opposites, so is the music.
That's true.
So, you know, you'll hear the choir sing minor and major chords, but they're superimposed on an orchestra that's doing something that's quite bizarre at times. So I'm very keen to hear that come together.
And so what would you say your influences were on the choral writing specifically? Were there any
of course, Carmina Burana, all the traditional works, you know.
The requiems of any of these composers?
Well, I listened to all the main ones, of course, the requiems, and looked at how Giuseppe Verdi would score it. And look, I love lushness, and I love the grandeur of the choir. I mean, I adore Samuel Barber, for instance, the Adagio sung by choruses, and I really love that. And I think that's part of my Italianness coming out. You know, I'm a romantic, and I really love, you know, the lushness of a huge, warm sound, as well as, you know, there are violent, you know, chants going on in this as well. But, you know, to me, the choir is almost the soul, the second soul. You're the first soul of the piece, where it tends to dissolve, disappear into dystopian obedience. And then it resurrects itself. It rises through the ashes and declares, oh, you know, this is a really beautiful world. And then that's the traditional bit that you're talking about, where it could be, you know, something in a very traditional, almost 19th century piece that comes out, or maybe 20th century piece, if you look at the harmonies. But, and then it dissolves into this darker world. So this is, you know, but it does that in conjunction with the orchestra. In of itself, you are correct. It's that, you know, there's nothing. There are no extended techniques.
Yes.
That I use in the choir. There's no groans. There's no screams. There are no slides or anything like that. I thought of that. But I thought, you know, you've got to be careful that it doesn't start sounding a little bit.
No, well, I think from the audience's
cheesy,
point of view,
you know?
there's also something instantly they can connect with.
Yes, oh, there's definitely
when they hear that in the chorus, and it's something that resonates with them.
It's full of memorable tunes. You will remember the tunes
that's
coming out
very
of
true.
this. They stay with you.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, it's deeply melodic, isn't it? And beautifully orchestrated, I have to say. And the choral writing is divine. I mean, just...
I'd never written for choral before.
That's what I was amazed at, because you did it so naturally, and the intimacy that you've managed to create. I mean, this does cover the entire gamut of dynamic range of the large forces on stage, the emotional range, but those intimate choral moments are really special. If you wanted the audience to be left with some kind of message after hearing the work, and I suppose it'll be different for anyone, but what would that be?
It confronts the audience with uncomfortable truths about society, identity, and authority. It presents beauty, what we have, our humanity, alongside with what happens when that dissolves and we lose it and we surrender it. I mean, it's coupled with Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, which is kind of scary for me. But in some ways, both are about human sacrifice, where Stravinsky's work is about offering, it's a human sacrifice to the gods, appeasing the gods. This is a different kind of sacrifice, and a more sinister one, in that we're surrendering our individuality and our very souls to authority or a big brother figure. So I guess the message that I'd like to leave the audience with is that let's not mess this up.
Yeah. That's a very poignant and timely message, I think, for everybody. What about for you, Jess? Have you got something that you've taken from the work, having spent time with it now, on that bigger picture message side?
I think let's not mess this up as a pretty important message to be thinking about right now. We are messing it up. We're going to mess it up. That's inevitable. But we got to stay with the trouble and keep coming back for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Nicely
Work hard to preserve all of the good things about humanity. Well, yes, the Rite of Spring is also on the program, and that's a reminder of the violent primitivism that we could potentially descend into if we're not careful. So it is, I mean, in some ways a contrast, and I'm sure from a compositional point of view, an intimidating thing to be
very
paired
intimidating,
with.
yes.
However,
Yeah. An inspirational one as well.
that was a very deliberate decision to put those two works together as well.
I didn't do that, by the way.
No, I did. And then the Pavane for a Dead Princess by Ravel is the opening work, which I think is it'll be a kind of a setting of the atmosphere before we then get into the large scale. Are there any questions in that sound world? And wasn't lost on me the slight connection, I suppose, between the sacrificial dance at the end of the Stravinsky, the Pavane for a Dead Princess at the beginning, and this journey that we go on between those two things as well. How exciting. The concert details, March 19th and 21st at Hamer Hall, and you can get your tickets from the website mso.com.au. We very much hope to see you there. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Jessica.